Without Bush, there would never have been a Hitler, Pope John Paul.
Oh, what a quote.
The first? The first?
I don't know, you're gonna have to do your research and look.
Because
There's been a
he
few-
was killed. He was killed.
Oh, okay, well, gee, you think maybe there's a reason for that? Maybe. We all know this guy, Werner von Braun. Oh, hey, look at him. Who's this guy? You know him? George Bush's dad? Prescott Bush. He got busted for helping the Nazis in Union Bank. That's what they're talking about. If it wasn't for Union Bank financing the Nazis, there wouldn't have been Nazis. Okay, so after the war, he got stripped and busted and humiliated. And this is where it gets really, really controversial. Are you ready? Alleged CIA Nazi ties to Tesla. Otto Skorensky. Remember, he's the guy that said that Scherf was the accountant for Tesla? There's Otto Skorensky right there as a young man. Okay? Let's look at the faces we have here. Who's that? That's Martin Bormann. Everybody know Martin Bormann? Yeah. How about him? Joseph Mengele. Yeah, Mengele.
Who's Martin Foreman?
Bormann's right here. Look at that face. Unmistakable Martin Bormann.
Give a little
Martin Bormann was the head of the Luftwaffe. If you guys are writing notes because you got to Google it. Martin Bormann, write that down. He was very flamboyant. He used to have these very fancy. He would have a swagger stick. You know, he's kind of heavy. You know, he was the head of the Luftwaffe. Of course, after the Battle of Britain, the Luftwaffe was dead, and he didn't really have much of a job. But anyway, okay. I don't know if you guys can all read this, but this is really controversial stuff. According to this guy Skorensky, when he died, which wasn't too long ago, he had a deathbed confession. Part of his deathbed confession was releasing the identity of this man right here, this young sailor boy right here. Now look at that face right there. Okay, look at that face really hard for just a second. And I want to go back one frame. Look at that face right there. Okay, look closely at that face. Now look at that sailor right there. Kind of looks like the same guy, huh?
Who is that?
This guy's name right here is Mr. Scherf Jr., George H. Scherf Jr. George Scherf Jr. Here's his dad right here. Now remember, this is the Tesla's accountant. Right here. Okay? You guys read any of this stuff? Okay. Let's see.
Steve, you can't see it from here. So
Okay, I'm sorry, you guys. All right, I'm just going to read. According to Otto Skorensky, pictured is the Scherf family and a few friends circa 1938. Holding Scherf's mother's hand at the left is possibly Martin Bormann. In front is Reinhard Gehlen, right here, Reinhard Gehlen. In the back is Joseph Mengele. To his right is Otto Skorensky, right here, Otto Skorensky. Let's see, where are we? Let's see, Skorensky is a young man at center right in the German Navy uniform is George H. Scherf Jr. and his father, George Scherf Sr. Let's see, to the right. He became Hitler, okay, he became Hitler's second in command. Gehlen, bottom front, was a Nazi general who was smuggled out of Germany under Operation Paperclip to establish the Nazi intelligence unit with Allen Dulles in the CIA and was part of CIA mind control experiments such as MK-Ultra. SS officer and physician Joseph Mengele in the back, notoriously sadistic angel of death of Auschwitz, escaped Germany and South America after the war. Skorensky became Hitler's bodyguard and also came to the U.S. after the war under Project Paperclip. George H. Scherf Jr. became the 41st President of the United States. George Sr. was Tesla's trusted assistant. There's Skorensky with Hitler. Now this is really cool. You guys all familiar with the children's book, Curious George? Man in the Yellow Hat? Guess who Curious George the monkey was? Friends and acquaintances of Nikola Tesla recall him complaining about Scherf's son George Jr. always snooping around Tesla's lab. On one occasion, probably during the 30s, Tesla caught the 14-year-old Scherf looking at his notes, poring through his books, and stealing small items. Tesla gave him the nickname Curious George and likened him to a mischievous monkey. According to Skorensky, his deathbed confession, Tesla hated young George. In fact, the Curious George book and the movie were inspired by Tesla's suggestion. Curiously, the day before the national theatrical release of the Hollywood production of Curious George film, the originator of Curious George, the man in the yellow hat, was found murdered under a plastic of pile of plastic garbage bags in his driveway at the age of 73. Why would somebody want to murder the man in the yellow hat? What are they trying to hide? Probably for the same reason why they wanted to bomb the Tesla museum, huh? So it gets thicker and thicker. Anyway, now if George Bush became the head of the CIA, he'd probably have a lot of power at hiding stuff like this. Huh. Russian scalar wave weapons. Now when Tesla died, it said that the United States confiscated all his papers, and the Russian agents came over here and interviewed and recruited a lot of his lab assistants. Kind of like the way the Americans and the Russians divided up the Nazi scientists after the war. We got all the scientists, they got the data. In this case, we got the data, they got the scientists. So the Russians started working on scalar wave weapons very early. Now, we didn't talk about scalar waves, but when Tesla discovered scalar waves, he realized that a scalar wave was essentially a very powerful field, a very powerful wave that did not have an electrical charge. It was essentially like tachyons, like this would be like a tachyon or something of this nature. But it's kind of like the energy that we're putting out. Now why is that? It's because it's essentially it's light. It's light at a different frequency. The energy that we're transmitting from our bodies is actually a coherent radiation, but it is light. Just like the light coming out of this laser. This is laser radiation, but it is light. So call it what you want, it's essentially the same thing. This picture here came out of Aviation News and Space Weekly magazine, which is a prestigious Air Force technology magazine. So we've been aware of this stuff for a long time, that they've been doing this. This essentially is what you could call Russian Star Wars. Now the thing about scalar waves is what they do, there has to be two sources of these things. And when you point one beam at a target and you have another source pointing at the same target, the real activity is when these beams interconnect and they produce an interference pattern. And it's in that signal of that interference pattern that decides what it is going to do. So in other words, this energy, this is the stuff of creation. This energy can be used to, when Tesla came up with this stuff, he told people that he could essentially shoot a beam into space and cause that energy to make a planet form out of nothing, out of the ether, out of the cosmos. And that's what we do when we manifest, right? When we manifest, we put our thoughts out there, our scalar waves. We tell the universe to give us a new Mercedes and it materializes or whatever, however that works. But that's the same thing. And this is acts of creation. So this is scientifically how that is working. We're going to get into that a little bit more, but you can see how we got the interference pattern. And for you physicists and scientists out here, you can tell me what that means. Michael, you know what that means?
Just multi-read.
Oh, sorry. Delta L cubed over C equals delta T cubed, otherwise E equals MC squared. Russian-Soviet scalar weapon use. In Afghanistan, they supposedly used it. Curiously enough, when the bodies of the victims did not decay for 30 days or longer, people thought something was really strange going on. This is kind of like when they irradiate meat and they make them, yeah, same thing, huh? Oh. Using radiation to make the meat stay, preserve meat. Well, they preserve those soldiers. Smaller versions, you know, they have things they call them Tesla howitzers. We're going to talk about Tesla howitzers. They're sort of like bazookas that send out these scalar waves. CIA uses them to execute people all the time, but that's a secret. Khrushchev had to satisfy the Soviet Presidium because they were all over his butt about the Americans doing this and that. So in order to get them off his back, he ordered the sinking of the USS Thresher. He basically pointed a scalar wave weapon at it. All the electrical systems on board fried, and it sunk and imploded. Now, this is an interesting pattern. We're going to talk about this, but this has to do with using it as a weapon. Again, there we have this intersection. You see the area of intersection makes this area. So this is the area that's going to be affected. The Tesla howitzer. We're not going to get too much into the technology, but suffice it to say that this can demonstrate that these devices can be made pretty darn small. From what I understand, they make them about this big. You can put them in a pocket, and somebody could kind of come up to you and push a button, and you'd have a heart attack. You wouldn't know what hit you.